revolucionario con cierto estupor, pero afortunadamente pasamos de la consternación y pasividad a la construcción activa de respuesta, ¿no? Hay un debate inmenso, rico, maravilloso, multiplataforma además, y permanente sobre lo que fue el 11 de julio en Cuba. El campo revolucionario pasó de la lentitud a la actualización. Yo, metafóricamente digo, pasamos de la web 1.0 a la web 3.0. Se actualizaba muy poco la información, como si fuera esto analógico, pero de la lógica analógica se pasó a la lógica digital. La respuesta del campo revolucionario cubano pasó de la lógica y de la racionalidad textual y enemigocéntrica, es decir, hablar mucho del enemigo y fijarnos mucho en lo que hace el enemigo. Pasamos a lo visual, que es importantísimo en esta batalla, y pasamos a pensar en la conexión con nuestra propia audiencia, alejándonos de lo enemigocéntrico, de siempre estar hablando del enemigo. Les voy a mostrar, compañeras y compañeros, les voy a mostrar dos ejemplos de lo que no se debe hacer, que responde desde mi punto de vista a la primera etapa de nuestra respuesta. Errores por usos y costumbres, lo llamo yo, porque creo que los usos y costumbres analógicos del siglo XX, que son inevitables que los tengamos, deben ser revisados y deben ser cambiados. Como dice Fidel, revolución es cambiar todo lo que haya que cambiar en el marco de la revolución. Por ejemplo, el tema del uso de las portadas y de las negaciones y de la agenda del enemigo. Fíjense en esta portada que dice: en Cuba no hay desaparecidos ni torturados. Lo sabemos, está claro, no hay ninguna duda, pero cuando siempre estamos negando lo que el enemigo afirma, nos estamos haciendo parte de su agenda y no estamos construyendo agenda propia. Hay que tener mucho cuidado con estar siempre centrado en negar lo que el enemigo afirma, porque nuevamente con eso le estamos dando voz al enemigo. Tenemos que tener cuidado con la visualidad, compañeros. Lo que continúa es la revolución. Por supuesto que la revolución continúa, ninguna duda, pero tenemos que tener cuidado con cómo semióticamente representamos la continuidad de la revolución. Fíjense en esta foto, de portada también, donde vemos 7 hombres, todos hombres, todos adultos, todos vestidos, excepto el compañero de azul, iguales, ¿no? Pantalones negros, camisa blanca, y no vemos ninguna mujer, compañeros. Aunque en estricto rigor vemos mujeres, ¿dónde? Atrás, sentadas en la pared. Esas son los tipos de visualidades, de precauciones semióticas que nosotros tenemos que tener cuando respondemos al ataque enemigo, porque por ahí nos entra, por ahí ocurre lo que Rosa Miriam llama la brecha de agenda. Pero, sin embargo, Cuba es tan maravillosa, que reacciona siempre tan maravillosamente, tan sorprendentemente, frente a esta primera reacción textual, analógica, lenta. Ha reaccionado maravillosamente desde mi punto de vista y está sentando las bases para una respuesta ante el enemigo interesante. Hemos visto en este escasísimo tiempo nuevas iniciativas comunicacionales en Cuba contra el desaliento y pensando en nuestras audiencias, como este programa, este chat de Telegram, la manigua a todos les recomiendo que se hagan parte de él, tiene miles de seguidores, se chatea, se discute, se habla de la isla. Tenemos programas como este con filos cortos, precisos, tenemos documentales como La dictadura del algoritmo, tenemos grupos en Telegram como La Cimarrona, que son feministas cubanas hablando. Tenemos un líder ahí que yo me atrevo a decir que se le ha sacado poco provecho comunicacional, como Gerardo, que siempre está también dando batalla comunicacional. Es decir, estamos viendo una serie.
I mean, we are looking at a series of elements, this exhibition of flyers, for example, gathering artists from all over the world who have started to respond to this communication attack Cuba is under and will continue to be under. Finally, comrades, in the face of this question, what to do, which is a big question chasing all revolutionaries for 100 years, I would say. First, we have to prepare our people in this attack front, because this is a war that is taking place in the field of communication. And communication is rooted in the community, and we have to prepare our people in that front. How? some very quick thoughts. We have to act in a systemic way. Chavez said that the big tectonic failure of the Bolivarian Revolution is communication because we didn't respond in a systemic way. We have to have a systemic coordination among all the revolutionary systems. We have to link communication with education. We have to have a new logic to make an educational effort, for example, to promote school contents about bots in Cuba. Now I have identified 3 priorities. The first is communication defense. There's no need to waste a lot of energy in communication attacks. First, in the context of asymmetry, we have to generate our own defense. We have to bet on the creation of content and the identification of audiences to create cognitive resistance. This should be one of our priorities. And finally, we must build something that the revolutionary field in Latin America lacks. We have to build communicational doctrine. We have to establish a dialogue. We have to summarize and coordinate, articulate military categories with communication categories. This was proposed first by Fidel and must be applied to the cultural and communication workers so that the whole people, the warfare, could cope with the fourth generation warfare. Thank you very much. I went very quickly. Ever onwards to victory. We will live and we will overcome. Thank you.
Pedro, thank you, Pedro, for your presentation. You mentioned Gerardo. I read myself on this occasion that he will join us on the 31st to participate in this initiative of Cuba Independent Times cycle of conferences. And no doubt you have shown us a precise, clear-cut description of the challenges and the efficiencies we are dealing with, and also of the big enemy we have. You said we should not be centered on the enemy, but it is there, it is against that, the same enemy, but in a new situation. I'll give the floor now to José Ernesto Nováez, who is by my side, the coordinator of the Cuban Chapter of the Network for the Defense of Humanity. Good afternoon. It is a great pleasure to be here. And I am very happy, as usual, to listen to Rosa and Pedro's intervention with great lucidity he shows as part of the left and of our allies, and there are specific ideas there that might help us to wage a battle that sometimes has not been articulated correctly, and sometimes we wage it in a fragmented way and in an efficient way. I believe that one of the things that are urgent for us as revolutionaries is to discuss everything as a whole and to forget about partial battles. There are some ideas I'd like to share with you on the July 11th events. There's been much talk about the antecedents. What happened on that day was a specific expression of the implementation, practical implementation with a long-term subversive strategy that have been tried in other ways, always in an effort to include as many people as possible and many social sectors. And of course, these are contexts of crisis, and these are complex situations of the country of the world, and the world facilitates such efforts. The important thing about July the 11th is that unlike any specific action that had been circumscribed to specific areas or to some given sectors in Cuban society, what happened that day shows that social networks and all this communication field Cuba is accessing to has been quicker than our capacity as a society and a political and social project to keep up with these technologies. We are connecting with US private companies, most of whom are those that people understand as internet. An average city sees Facebook, Instagram, and so on, see them, but these are American companies, so we are accessing a world controlled by the logic of capitalism, and we are playing on the rules that are adverse to us. What happened on July 11th shows the immense capacity for subversion the social networks have as an ideological tool at the service of the right in Cuba. What happened on July 11th also evidences a series of matters having to do with the very complexity of Cuban society. In these events, there were political change actors implied. There were also social sectors who are marginalized. They were not able to connect with the wider sectors of the population that somehow expressed their specific discontents, and this brought about violence. But there was also, due to the many crises combined in Cuban society today, reinforced by the blockade, they were able to connect in several places of Cuba simultaneously with wide sectors of society, more or less wide sectors that channel their discontent and dissatisfaction, and they didn't find a way to express them through other means in the country. The July 11th events are very complex. To analyze them, you must have many things to account. I will focus on two groups of things that are key in my view. First, our own failures. The Cuban Socialist Project has been built on the symbiosis between a social sovereign project for the nation that has found in state institutions the way of achieving social justice. That's an essential part of the project. The crisis of the 90s, the very reforms that have had to be carried out to deal with the not terrible impacts of this crisis in a world where neoliberalism seemed to be triumphant and hegemonic, and that was not the spirit, but it impacted Cuba very much. All these things led to a reduction of the capacity by the state to fulfill or channel through all these institutions created by the revolution to carry out its social and political work. As compromised, and that there were wide spaces in Cuban civil society that are structured ways of thinking that most of production are not connected to the socialist project or even to the sovereign project for the nation, and they also perceive state activity as an obstacle for their development and social aims. So that's where the challenge lies. The challenge to really understanding how there has been a reduced capacity of response by the state in the last few decades and see how we can rebuild that capacity. We must also analyze in the revolutionary ranks, with the critical spirit of the revolution, the shortcomings and deficiencies of the community and people's power structures. There are sectors of the population which are political players who are not vandals but workers, and why they collect themselves at the time with the demands and the symbols and the mottos, as well as of the political players who were like the spark that began a movement, and the action led to July 11th. How can we deepen the revolution? How can we take up the experience of community work and of many of the projects that are in the battle of ideas that started in the early 21st century? Whereas there were some deviations and there were some false steps, the essential, the political essence of the project was a revolution within the revolution, and that is still valid. And it was rescuing, bringing back that capacity, which is what the revolution is all about, of having an impact on all people in Cuba, benefiting first protection for an action and access to the possibilities of socialism in the revolution. Among those we then define as the essence of the revolution, of the humble and by the humble and for the humble. I think we must also understand the political players of July 11 and continue to play in Cuba. They will try to call for another such day because they have all this media articulation that includes all the big media or networks of the big creators of symbols in the world today. But have an agenda, and what's the agenda behind them? What are the narratives they are trying to create based on events that have been in Cuba, and which we are trying to understand and respond to, because they are narratives that ignore wide aspects or great aspects of reality and try to give false reading of facts. They use July 11th to peaceful protests, they ignore vandalism, and they want to describe the revolution and the only violent player in the process. But that was not the case. It was a very complex process in which there was a fracturing or a danger of fracturing of social cohesion, and now we are rebuilding and bending up those constructions that might have been damaged and to better those who don't want to. I think that we must understand as to this agenda that behind all these apparatus of aggressions against Cuba, there is an attempt to connecting the annexionist project by part of the Cuban exile with sectors in the Cuban society. It is an annexation project that is widely stated by the heirs of the Cuban bourgeoisie prior to '59, who have become political actors of note in American society. It is an annexionist project which is the very essence of the moral bankruptcy of the Cuban bourgeois class before '59 that were not able to create a sovereign project for the nation, which is the alternative to the socialist and sovereign project of the Cuban Revolution after '59. This agenda appeals all the time to abstract values. It has to do with other subversive experiences that have been tried against leftist processes in the region, and that was widely started against socialist processes in Western Europe, Eastern Europe. Democracy, freedom, calling the Cuban government a dictatorship, and so on. They seem that they say a lot, but actually they do not bring a commitment with any specific political platform. Freedom, if you know something about the theory, is not an abstract thing. It always has a surname. Freedom is not abstract. If you do not give it an adjective, a surname, it will be nothing but a vague hammer to hit any government that is perceived as counter-hegemonic and different from the domination project being promoted by the United States, which is the imperial hegemon in the contemporary world par excellence. And deep inside, as I see behind this process, we have to think of the main premises of the Cuban socialist process. So we saw various, we see the various communications attacked the symbols and the project of the nation. Remember the desecration with blood of Martí busts, or the desecration of the Cuban flag by some artists. I mean, these persons are not denying the socialist project of the Cuban nation because they have an alternative sovereign project. Behind this, there is the project of restoring the neo-colony, which is the core of the 60 years of hostility against and attacks against the Cuban Revolution. Thank you very much. Thank you, José Ernesto. The speakers are being heard. I would like to give a video contribution by a university professor who is a member of the Cuban Society. Sorry, the speakers are being heard.
¿Qué pasó en Cuba el 11 de julio? Yo creo que las respuestas
I believe the answer includes the definition of several ideas. First, you must understand the creation by Cuba of an alternative society to capitalism, and it is being influenced by several conditions, both within and without the country. One of those internal conditions is economic underdevelopment, with its contradictions that were inherited, but also contradictions which generated later. These generated contradictions show the way and the methods in which you build socialism in Cuba, and many times with successes, but also some failures and mistakes and limitations we've had, not only in the creation of social public policies, but also in the implementation. Another idea has to do with the previous two ones. It is a multidimensional war being waged against Cuba, not only economically, and we all know the blockade plays a key role in it, but also the war that includes politics, ideology, culture, the law. And it is just in that space where they try to impact the social imagery in Cuba, which is complex, and it has to do with many questions, particularly the impact on the citizens, what discourse they will listen to, because there are different discourses and different interests, and how they can influence other logics that develop citizens, how they express that in their participation, in their mobilizations, and in their social attitudes. From that viewpoint, we can then understand that what happened on July the 11th is a combination of many things. Legally, we must separate or differentiate between those who had the legitimate right to express themselves under the Cuban Constitution. It is right recognized by the Constitution of 2019 that was voted for by the majority of Cubans, and they also exercised their right to express themselves. But we must separate that or differentiate that from a series of events that did away with the essential contents of the Constitution, defining the right to express yourself or protest, and it is the element defined as peaceful and the definition of not peaceful. Cuba, there is a rule of the law. There are a series of political and individual freedoms and of economic and social and other rights that are defined by the law. As a socialist state under the law, it should include a whole series of guarantees for the exercise of such rights, and also the ways and forms of having institutions legal, meaning that citizens must have a legal protection. And one of the opinions opinion matrix that have had the greatest impact on the world is the one resulting from the arrests and the so-called tortures and the forced disappearances. We must say that the legal framework in Cuba includes all the elements and mechanisms to investigate and determine, in the case of any breaking of the law, what really happened, and not only from the viewpoint of an expression itself, but as to any other right that has been violated by third parties or by authorities themselves. We must say also that as it happened anywhere in the world, freedoms in Cuba, rights in Cuba are not unlimited. There is a reference in Article 45 of the Constitution to the limitation of rights when such exercise affects third parties or public order or collective security or general interest of the state. And this is also an important element to be taken into account. It is licit to express yourself in Cuba and protest if the protest is under the law and it is peaceful.
Sí, era el profesor Yuri Pérez Martín.
This was Professor Yuri Perez Martin from the Association of Jurists of Cuba, participating from a video in this debate, in this dialogue that we are promoting here. And now I will give the floor to Helen Yaffe from the UK. She has also studied the forms of resistance of the Cuban people and the Cuban Revolution, and has her own vision about what has happened to these days. Helen, you have the floor. Can you hear me? I will try to share my views.
Whoa.
Can you see this? It's an infinite series of images. I do not think we are exactly watching what you want us to see. Let me try again here. I do not know how this works. Okay. Now I am watching at Pedro's presentation. But if I click on this, can you hear that? Can you see that? No. We are seeing you. Well, I will have to do it without the PowerPoint presentation. Let's try it one more time. Okay, can you see this presentation? No.
¿Podrías verificar si no tienes dos sesiones abiertas?
Could you check you don't have two sessions open? Sometimes this is what happens. Okay. As a historian by profession, I would like to give a little bit of historical context to the conditions that led to the demonstrations of July the 11th. As you said, I was in Cuba on that day. I have just arrived in the UK. I am spending my quarantine in a hotel. The environment here is not very proper for a video conference, but I will keep on. So, what I had to show you, to most of you, was the memorandum issued by Lecter Mallory, the Under Secretary Assistant of the US, which about the idea of the blockade, issued on April the 6th, 1960, and he said, recognizing the big support enjoyed by the revolution and Fidel and the Cuban people, He concluded as following: the only permissible way to eliminate internal support is through disenchantment and disappointment based on dissatisfaction and economic hardships. He arrived at the conclusion that the U.S. was designed a policy to weaken the economic life of Cuba, and you can do that through denial money and food supplies to diminish real and nominal wages in order to bring about hunger, desperation, and the overthrowing of government. Most of the Cubans who are listening to this know what I am talking about. So I will try to show the next slide, headed by this title: Is the U.S. embargo an excuse? We have very often listened to this, and those who study the economic development of Cuba, this cannot be further from the truth. The blockade against Cuba is the longest lasting system of unilateral sanctions applied against any country ever in human history. It is not about a legal or bilateral issue, as many people say. This is a key instrument as part of a system imposed by the U.S. to bring about a change of regime in the island. Now, we have been speaking about the social media warfare. Other instruments have been misinformation with the purpose of creating precisely that misinformation to give a view that is quite negative to foreigners. So a lot of misinformation and creating a paradigm of how Cuba should be understood that Cuba was controlled by Fidel Castro, that there's no democracy, that this was a discontinuation of the historical, the economic history of Cuba, that Cuba had a very accelerated economic development that was interrupted by the Cuban Revolution. And the other purpose of that was to provide information to the CIA and the State Department for the planning of actions against Cuba. Scholars who have studied this have said that this was known as Cuba doesn't legislate. So almost all the materials issued about this was known as a Cubanology. Other instruments of that program against Cuba has been the money spent in programs to create a domestic opposition, and I have a figure here, one of the many that can be given. 1996, from 1996 to 2015, more than $1 billion US were invested in programs to create a domestic opposition in Cuba, and without much success. So, to be clear about this, we should say that the blockade, the sanctions, the embargo, as you wish, is an act of war. It is a violation of the human rights of all Cubans and of all citizens of the world, but it is destined to hinder Cuban development and to hinder its example as a socialist alternative, and to cause hardships to the Cuban people. And we have seen this very clearly when Trump was in office. as from 2019. Under the Trump administration, 243 new actions were adopted against Cuba. To understand the strength of those actions, we have to be aware of the fact that almost 90% of the financial transactions, international financial transactions, are made in dollars. So the US has a very strong leverage. They can give an authorization to use dollars because they have total control of dollars in the world. That is why this affects banks all over the world. It affects me as a British citizen. It impacts all European citizens, and in fact, the blockade is extraterritorial because of these financial mechanisms. We also know that during the pandemic, more than 50 coercive measures were introduced by the Trump administration, which negatively affected Cuba's capability to respond to the pandemic. It hindered Cuba's capacity to import ventilators and also spare parts, syringes, medications, raw materials, foodstuffs, fuels. Even international donations have been blocked during the pandemic. Despite the fact that all countries are calling for the ceasing of sanctions affecting any country's capacity to respond to the pandemic, the inevitable result, an awaited result by the US has been the scarcity of foodstuff, medical inputs, fuels, and I myself have seen from all Cubans, and Cubans know this is a real situation. People very early in the morning will queue up in shops that will not open until several hours after that. They can go to work. No one should be surprised that there is a frustration among the Cuban people and also a dysfunction, precisely as a result of a policy that has been intended to create that situation. So we must understand the Trump's ascension and the social media warfare, which are contemporary designs of the two-track policy carried out by the US since the beginning of the Cuban Revolution. There have been economic sanctions to create discontent, and then the promotion of an internal opposition. And in that context, the hypocrisy of the US President Biden, is outrageous. He calls Cuba a failed state. The first violent demonstration after 27 years. I lived in Cuba during a special period. I witnessed was scarcities, the struggle to solve the problems Cuba faced. But that is a country where Biden himself could hardly take office as a result of a fascist coup. The U.S. is witnessing protests on a daily basis. On a daily basis, there are civilians killing other civilians and police killing civilians. I had a graph to show it to you. In the U.S., is ranking first in the world in terms of civilians killed by law enforcement agents. This is ranking first among all over the world, but the idea that Cuba is a failed state because of the poverty situation there is another argument. Others refer to that. Last year, I made a documentary film about Cuba's reaction to the pandemic. And I set Cuba as an example, its reaction, the mobilization to save lives, an example to the world. It is available on YouTube. Cuba COVID-19 Public Health Science and Solidarity is the title, showing that Cuba has sent people to 40 countries to help with the pandemic. Right now, there are people speaking about the peak of infection in Cuba. In fact, in the last 2 months, Cuba has been facing a very difficult situation, as in many other countries in the world. And if you make a list of COVID-affected countries, what is the most affected country? First, the US, then India, Russia, my country, where more than 130,000 people have died, and Cuba is where? Cuba is ranking 49 in that list. So this is the type of propaganda and disinformation that is relevant today, that we must fight today. It is a pity that you cannot watch to my slides, which calls for the end of the blockade. We should oppose the economic suffocation against Cuba. We must demand the end of the U.S. blockade against Cuba. What does that mean? We demand our governments to apply national laws. That means that in Great Britain, as well as in the European Union, and in most of the countries of the world, there is a movement precisely to say the implementation of sanctions against Cuba, which are U.S. laws, is illegal, and can sanction anybody paying a penalty to the U.S. What happens? Our governments, our legal systems do not apply the law. That is why I say, let us apply national laws. If all countries of the world were not accomplices, because this is the implementation of the U.S. national law in an extraterritorial way, there wouldn't be any strong blockade as it is. We also must oppose the social media warfare. We should work to counteract lies and manipulation. We should understand that it's a historical program against a program aimed at undermining the Cuban Revolution. We have to educate and inform. As Pedro was saying, I would like to think about what can we do. We outside Cuba want to do something that is right. And I would like to pose that question for everybody who is listening. How can we make our own governments to refuse to become an accomplice to with the U.S. sanctions? What actions can we coordinate internationally to defend Cuba from the imperialist aggression? And I had a picture, of course, you cannot see it. I had a picture of Carlos Lazo and the Bridges of Love. They are setting an example that we should follow. And I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Sí, muchas gracias, Helen. Lamentamos no he podido ver.
Thank you. José Miriam, we couldn't see the slides, but we can download it later and see it so that it can be analyzed. Now we will have the last presenter this afternoon. Txema Sánchez from Spain. Txema, are you there? Txema is on the screen now. He's also part of this conference, and he will bring us his meetings and do the European work. Thank you very much. Hello to you all. Hello, Cuba. All to the country with the bankers of anti-capitalism, internationalism for over 60 years. In this is another I could not ignore. This bringing this event. Also, this discussion of the intellectuals from the world. When Cuba and Venezuela have visited my hall, they say, please come and you provide your contribution. And now we are having a discussion about anti-imperialist application. Many of the things that I wanted to say have been still already in some way by the speakers anyway. Internet communications are unique democratizing of modernity. Universalization of information and getting information and reach out with it everywhere. And well, to know how people meet, who are meeting. Sometimes you need financial support or you have it and make it for this others. Now we have to recognize each other and meet with good people, with ideologies, and we can go ignore any of those who are sent to the Congresses in reference of the more official left countries, and then the others may be mobilized, those who do not have those possibilities. True, this is relative. Anti-imperialism is also carried out here, and it is facing not only fake news but also real or fictitious characters or lackeys, or who present curricula that are exaggerated as a study how you can buy journalists. Anti-imperialism is also facing movements financing and the inclusion of elements articulated for that narrative, pro-imperialist narrative. They are the henchmen of literature. As we see that they are changing history, erasing history, and there are 40 years of explicit U.S. interventionism to carry out that disaster there and to create the false liberation movement, the Taliban. Also, the same goes for the media that gain credit because to be the leftist reference in its space, and then they put that credibility to benefit the capital and the parents' narrative in the world. That credibility is won by them in the local media and then get their support. So there is a true bait of for the left to actually benefit the right. So they are credible analyzers of various news and things, and then they disseminate lies in the world. That's bringing about paralysis and confusion about the rank and file of the left. And beware of the editorial lines of the classical memes. They're already playing at faking true facts and credible news, and then they use it to work for the benefit of the oligarchy in the class struggle, as it happens so much in the bourgeois democracies that defend free press, but actually they disseminate disinformation and lies, and they actually harm truth. Theoretically, this is a datum. There is a datum that I have always commented on, and it surprises me how people accept it. In theory, you cannot lie shamelessly because there is a crime by the law. But in the news and in the debates, they tell lies all the time. And they can during election campaigns, they carry out and give you and sell lies to voters all the time. Social networks and internet are also an evident threat to power. That is why beware when you have this narrative of demonization for the social networks. That's dangerous because that control would be in the hands of the empire, and it would be a new gag to truth also. We may articulate something against the counter-revolution, and the small group of companies like Afghan and Google, Apple, and others will not improve our situation, but that of the counter-revolution. Actually, those social networks are capitalist tools. As Fidel said once, could be also the perfect weapon for the organization of information, and they will become collective tools in the balance of forces in the class struggle benefits us. It is our duty from the anti-imperialist communication guerrilla to connect each other and connect those networks, all the anti-imperialist militants who establish the creativeness of the people, their reason, their everyday struggle for the real possibilities for the truth, or the possibility of the war for the truth. As Santander said, combating that disappointment and calling for culture hegemony means a lab against a lab, not only by being reactive but also by being creative. The Cuban leaders have invited us to meditate on the communication dimension of the battle in a creative way. Let's be creative and strong and create new communication, make all the imperialist ones or do away with the communication paradigms by articulating the communication guerrilla without following the capitalist competition patterns and embarking on the road that is not theirs, where they will always be stronger. They have inoculated people with their neoliberal ideas and lies. If we do away with those schemes, we will be advancing along our paths and the new formats without ignoring and underestimating our truth in their own fields of action. We will have our utopias, but also will have our own way. But they're also working unscrupulously with lies, because they have planted in our culture and many things, many lies, many patterns, absurd patterns, and we must insist on keeping the true principles and not only with the similitudes. As Sanchez said, the way in which wars are waged and can be stopped means that we must understand that if wars can be waged with lies, peace can start with truth. And I say that it must start with truth. So let's begin by contrasting things. We need information and analyzing this information, political analysis of the situation, because the economy and politics that are privileged by the class struggle is transversal to all the communication actions of the world. In the class struggle, I mean those who possess and those who have not. But always we will have the permission of the power that be, and let's start by exposing these attacks against by Venezuela against Cuba, and also in the context of the coronavirus in the world, who affects the economies, particularly those in countries where people are affected because they think about the money rather than about the health of people. In Cuba, they think first about their health, even though they have been besieged by US blockade for 60 years, even more. They have tackled it with more sanctions, criminally, again, using away themselves of the COVID emergency situation, and they have brought about the fall of tourism as the main source of resources for Cuba, which is restricted due to the health measures against the pandemic. In spite of this, Cuba continues to be an example for the world, and data says that even today. They say SOS Cuba, as seen the economy just only happening in Cuba, and the social democracy, which is a bourgeois democracy. That's the question, to dismantle Cuba's social model to replace it with capitalism. And today I want to show to you today data to analyze. You know this information, I guess, but many people in the world do not. And I have downloaded the information about this attack of imperialism against Cuba, and bring this information that I downloaded 3 hours ago. This is the same database that gives us the Johns Hopkins University website. Johns Hopkins University is a site where you read the data on coronavirus. I'll try to share with you this single image. If I have Arbor located on Helen, and I can put it on the screen and see if you can see it. Let's see if we can share only this image with you. Let's see if we are lucky with the technology. There it is. Can you see it? Yes. And you can see in the first part, I just copied from Johns Hopkins University site, showing some of the countries that figure the deaths, fatalities, and the number that can be seen by everybody of deaths for every 100,000 people. Yes, deaths may be seen. You may have many people in the country and has less deaths, but the percentage is bigger. The most important data is the death rate per every 100,000. If you see there, at the bottom you have Cuba, and it reads that Cuba is having 100 times less than China per every 100,000. We are talking about a country like China, which is an economic power with all the resources of the world at disposal. And as Cuba, it is much worried about its people and putting health at the top of its priorities. And it has been successful to reduce the coronavirus dissemination, contrary to what is being said by the mass media. 800,000 people, 100 million people have been taken out of below the poverty line. So China, so Cuba with 100 times more than China. But what about the countries that they show on to us as reference? Canada, twice as many deaths per every 100,000 than China. Germany 3 times. France 5 times. Spain 5 times more deaths. Of course, Spain has 100 times more than China. USA, United States, 5 times more deaths than Cuba. Brazil, with the famous, with the genocide president, 8 times more than Cuba. And the SOS is being sent from Cuba. With this, I must recall that all the truth that is not told to us, if you just think a little, you can find it. But we must be busy all the time looking for this data because they are mixed and manipulated by the media. Get confusion, bring confusion. There should have been an SOS in Spain and not an SOS in Cuba message with thin eyes showing that it is China, but it's not China, it's Spain, the one that should have an SOS. The United States it is having millions of deaths, 5 times more than the ones in Cuba, and 500 times more than the ones in China. After seeing this image, I can add something more, which is not in it. I recall where the data come from, and I got curious, looking at the same site of Johns Hopkins, and how is Florida going with the pandemic? Then I downloaded Florida. What did I find? The population there, I mean, it's 19 million people. Not twice as much as Cuba's. And Cuba has 11 million. But they don't have twice as many deaths as Cuba. That could be the approximate trend. Not 8,000 deaths, Cuba has 4,000. Florida has 40,700 deaths. So This rate is 211 deaths per 100,000, even above the US median value, and 6 times the average of Cuba, which is 31 deaths per 100,000. So I think that from here we should send a SOS for Miami so that those there who are confused should think about such an SOS. Something should be done about Florida because of the situation. We can repeat the word here. Capitalism should not be separated from the very concept we were entertaining, that what is bad because capitalism is not humanism or socialism, and they do not mention the word bourgeois because democracy must have a surname, an adjective. Democracy should include bourgeois democracy. I will quote Roque Dalton from El Salvador, the great poet. He said, "Why should we the use of revolutionary poetry to become poets or to carry out the revolution?" I use this wonderful quotation with the phrase that what should democracy be for? To carry out democracy or to benefit the bourgeoisie? We are cloned by the language, by the neoliberal imperialist culture, as it explained on colonized countries. There is the symmetry that prevents us from understanding. We have been sold things. And actually, as it happens in Europe, it is an oligarchy unified to exploit the majority and impose domination and prevents the people to unite themselves because we are vaccinated against the unity of peoples and countries for the benefit of true democracy and dignity as a real democracy as that of Cuba's. We must say that Cuban democracy it is imperfect because it is due to the permanent war waged against that country by the United States. That democracy of Cuba, however, is being perfected, and it is, as Sabina would say in a song, is 100 times more sound and perfect than any bourgeois democracy in the so-called international community countries. It is in Cuba and this we are real social opportunity for the full realization of the full realization of millions. While in other countries there is the exclusion of poverty, our knowledge about the great advances and achievements of the anti-capitalist international humanist revolution of Cuba is another work done to tell the world about it. For Cuba is not exporting only doctors and solidarity, but an example as to how an example can be created by and for the people. This is at the end of my intervention. We should have ways to carry out the communication of real welfare and think of the DSS in the present time of Cuba. That is the slogan of this meeting. We must restore to education as a vaccination against these attacks and to have communication with the people. I read these two paragraphs by Vitier. He wrote in the essay, what role do we play with the people? I mean, the neighbors, the common people, the subject of the world where we live, or where we have lived always, within the history and the lifetime. The response to that is José Martí, because with him, politics, people, and poetry are the same thing. In real life, full of imagination, you do not have just imaginary. The habit of typing him and reading him tells us about the ideas of words that were never separated for a single minute from freedom. It's the source of everyday life, however, was also important. I will not be naive enough to think that each citizen will be an expert on José Martí, but I am naive to say that I always believe that I think all Cubans should follow Martí, and if you follow Martí, the day will come. If you are not, you will be a marginalized person. Martí is capable of vaccinating against marginalization. Martí can inspire each Cuban and give ethics to him and to give resistance to adversity and wealth of life. Peter was great, a great writer. With this I will finish. My quote, Peter was so great that for a group that we do not call for politics without an ethics, but politics with ethics. Let us continue making progress on the shoulders of giants. Long live Cuba, long live Fidel, Bolívar, and Martí. Patria muerte venceremos. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Txema. I thank you a lot for having read those paragraphs by Cynthia Vitier, which are wonderful, reminding us of a time very similar to this. This remains very much valid. They have a similar strength, Cuba at the present time. The cycle of panels appreciate that very much. I would like to take this opportunity to ask the members at the virtual hall if they have questions or comments to please post it in the chat. The fact that we are speaking about poetry a while ago paves the way to what we will see now. Three Cuban artists, Lesbia Benoit, National Award Laureate of Fine Arts, Digna Guerra, the choir director member of the World Federation of Choirs, and writer Miguel Barnet, President of Honor of UNIAC, have sent a message in video for this conference. So before showing the video, I insist those who are with us, the 28 people with us here in this virtual hall, if you have any question or comment, please post it in writing in the chat. Let us look at this message by Cuban artists. Sorry, we cannot hear the speaker. I believe that at this moment we have to defend the homeland. Homeland is above everything, above our profession, above our human condition. We have to give your all, and knowing that giving our all is not a slogan, it's a fact. In Cuba, we have freedom of creation. In all artistic manifestations, we have freedom of creation. We are lucky to have an artistic education system that goes from primary level, from the elementary level through the medium level and the higher level, which is the higher institute of art. And all Cubans, all children, all youngsters have the right to go through those schools and to realize the dream of becoming whatever they want to become. Cuba offers all possibilities to everyone without exception, without differences in terms of race, and in all artistic groups in our country, you will see a very rich ethnical composition, which is the ethnical composition of the Cuban people. We do not make differences between black and white. We are all mixed, as Nicolas Guillen said, and we will continue to be so in favor of the revolution and in favor of revolutionary art. My disposition is the disposition I have shown usually, always in the defense of the principles of the Cuban Revolution. Many times in our history we have gone through very difficult, crucial moments like this. Perhaps this would be the worst, because it is accompanied, unfortunately, by a pandemic that is lashing the whole planet. I believe that this is a moment for reflection, to show sanity, we have to make introspection. We are defending the values of Fidel, the values of a revolution that has applied justice at every level, in every field, in culture, education, health, in an unbelievable way. And we have to close ranks again, but we should close ranks in a true way, not with barricade patriotism, but with a conscious patriotism, with a conscience planted by Fidel, knowing that we will never resort to neoliberalism or wild capitalism, knowing that the true solutions of the problems affecting this continent, as we have seen with this revolution, we are speaking about human rights, and the main human rights, which is the right to life, to health, education, culture, is socialism. Thank you very much to all the comrades who have prepared this material, this video. The comrades of MUNIAC have helped us in this to be able to have all the voices participating in this panel and disseminating some ideas which are fundamental to us. We have been receiving greetings from different associations, from social networks. The National Friendship Association between Cuba and Italy sends greetings from Italy. The Association José Martí from Rio, the Association from Turkey, from Germany, from Venezuela, the Brazilian Solidarity Agreement with Cuba, the Solidarity Movement with Cuba in Solidarity, the Cuban Embassy in Ukraine, other greetings from Switzerland, US, Italy, Paraguay, Mexico, Angola, Paraguay. Well, we were being asked if this was being recorded. Yes, of course, we are recording it, and this will be published in YouTube and Facebook. And at the same time, we are creating Cuba, the present time of Cuba, which will start compiling these materials to make them available to the public. We are asked one question, a user called Bronstein. He asks, is it possible to clarify the concept of viral entropy with concrete examples? We receive greetings from Nigeria. Hector Diaz Polanco sends greetings from Mexico. Obviously, he is in contact with us. I do not know if it is in the Gypsy platform or if he's watching us through some channels. Cesar Aizaga Castro asks for some bibliography in order to read in terms of communication. And there's also another question: what other ideas could be implemented as to how can we cope with the present misinformation and manipulation? We are being asked to expand on this. If I can have a look at the chat screen, I believe it is important to give life to the cultural guerrilla. From the continent, we are giving life to the festival in order for peoples to breathe and to advance towards the construction of new narratives, the digital sovereignty, and never give up cultural creation in our processes. Greetings from Panama, from FENADESO, members of the ALBA movement, permanent solidarity. Greetings from our organization. Greetings from the Friendship House of Argentina. Excellent contributions. Questions about communication. So I believe this is also an opportunity to announce a new round with panel members for them to elaborate on all these ideas and address this media warfare issue, which is no doubt a topic that is raising a lot of interest. What are the antidotes that we can resort to? Rosa Miriam, Thank you very much. I have been following the debate very interestingly. I believe that first and foremost, we should understand the different levels of this issue. There is one level scale that has to do with Cuba, the country where these network relations are generated, but there is another level which is an international level, which is very interesting. You may have 11 million Cubans sending tweets or expressing the reality of a country. However, at the international level, this is not seen. We were aware of that during the campaign of the famous sonic attacks that became the Havana syndrome. There wasn't a single Cuban believing that nobody, not even a scientist, could explain such a phenomenon based on the laws of physics. However, the Trump administration generated an escalation of sanctions, 243 all in all, which have served to generate these tension, this economic, social, political tension inside the country. So I believe that, and I will conclude with this to allow other comments to speak. We must better articulate solidarity networks as well as our coordinations in order to generate at the international level, as the right thing is to take the present, so that alternative processes and the world left wing could react at the speed of a click to these maneuvers, which at the end of the day is harmful to all of us. In Cuba, we have witnessed a sequence of actions and attacks experienced by other peoples in all these years, which have following the same recipes, the same conventional warfare tactics. Therefore, no one is exempted from these kind of experiences that will continue to repeat against our countries. To understand this and generate environments of organization and understanding that the internet is not only about communication but also organization is very important to generate a defense of our popular processes. Thank you very much, Rosa Miriam. I give the floor now to Pedro. We are entertaining a couple of questions. How should we reinforce cultural and social media processes? How can we reach out to the sector who doesn't watch TV or read newspaper, who have cell phones, consuming all that is distributed through the social networks? David Rodriguez asked us to speak about the effect of a blockade on the struggle against the COVID pandemic. We'll address that next Tuesday. Pedro, you have it for now. Can you hear me well? Yes, a comment was asking me about the virtual entropy concept. The problem is that entropy has to do with the molecular disorder in physics. And also in the information science. We should understand that in social networks, in the digital activity, we can create mobilization activities, and as we bet in our countries to the slogan that states from the networks to the street, the imperialism is doing the same. It is implementing a series of strategies to make people to take to the street, to go offline. So the virtual entropy is about going through all these phases, the chronic, acute, and critical phases, and to heat up the environment under specific circumstances and under specific context. This does work. The disorder generated, the chaos and uncertainty generated in the digital networks can be trespassed to the streets. So the concept of virtual entropy is precisely about that, how to export all that is generated in social media, which was described very well in the graphs shown by Rosa Miriam. Regarding the questions about concrete action, first of all, we should understand that sometimes many of our actions could be one line drawn in order. Rosa Miriam put it very clearly. There might be millions of Cubans asking for one thing and nobody hears of it because the giants of the networks control the flow of information and networks, and at a certain point they blocked us. Therefore, I believe that the main strategies of the revolutionary field must be oriented to our audiences, and this is the defensive sense of the communication battle. In our audiences, we should carry out the main work. It is within our audience that we should carry out the main work, which is about communication connection. When you establish a connection, when you reach out to your audience and seduce your audience, what you are building is what can be called cognitive resistance in the face of the messages broadcast by the imperialists, because that is also important to understand. Just as the Spanish government was putting it, data are on our side. The COVID data are on our side. US, Brazil, the extreme right-wing governments had the worst data in the struggle against COVID. Venezuela and Cuba are showing excellent data comparatively, but this doesn't matter in this communication warfare. What really matters is the truthfulness, not as much as the truth. So we revolutionaries must learn how to respond to the need of truthfulness. And finally, I believe that we cannot but assess the possibility of direct communication, as was shown by Bolivia, Peru, and Chile, countries where the big media control communication. Direct communication plays a very important role in the dispute for the hegemony. Despite the fourth industrial revolution, direct communication continues to have a main role in the communication policies. Thank you, Pedro, and I ask you to please help me with the chat to see if there are some comments. Greetings from Gabo Sequeira from the Networks in the Defense of the Humanity. Enough of the blockade against Cuba. Greetings from Ireland. We shall overcome. Rosy Swindiga, we should progress in terms of political awareness. We should discuss again all the concepts that have been discussed here. Communication education among the people. And now we give the floor to José Ernesto Nováez.
Can you hear me? Briefly, I'll share with you two key ideas. The battle we must wage for Cuba, not for Cuba, because Cuba is perhaps the symbol of the biggest battle, but the battle we must wage today is against capitalism, which not always only degrading life, human life, and life in the planet, but also a battle against the alienation capitalism produces and brings about all the time. This is a fundamental idea by Venezuelan Marxists called ideological surplus value. That is not only economic surplus value, but in capitalism you have surplus value everywhere, not just in production. We are producing it all the time in ads, in the lust for consumerism, and the use of tools capitalism are created to keep us entertained. There's another warning by Marcuse in the 60s, and sometimes that with the enthusiasm for technology we'll get something. Every society, he wrote, produces the technology it needs. Technology is not neutral, it is the result of specific needs in society. In the case of the new technologies, ITCs, they are the result of the needs for domination by capitalism in industrial advanced nations. All technology around us, cell phones, tablets, TV, from the moment we are using them, we must understand that we are waging a battle with tools created for the alienation and the reproduction of a system at a higher scale. It is not only a matter with the Cuban survivors, that we must understand that we are waging a battle for humanity, and the latest news on the constant natural catastrophes, the taxing nature on nature are affecting our human species. It shows to us that this communication battle must be waged and be carried out by doing away with all the roots of capitalist domination, including the profound roots of this modernity that has been accepted and apparently brutal modernity that they want to impose on us. Thank you, José Ernesto. There is a new question about what other previous experiences in other countries panelists have to help Cuba to wage the battle over the cyberspace. Now we give the floor to Helen. Can you hear me? Yes, Helen. All right. I wanted to share a couple things with you. When I was in Cuba during July 11th, I got many requests from the press, from the international press, the main media, to carry out interviews with the radio and TV. And I had to turn down the invitations many times because they were using platforms that could not access from Cuba. With complicated structure. So we can say that we must be active in social networks. That's true, but we also must admit that the very sanctions and the control over the media and the communication network in the world by some multinationals, mostly based in the United States, are also very difficult to overcome. And we must think of ways to help our friends in Cuba so that their messages reach out to the wider audience. From that we can do it. Cubans can do more things, and they should do them systematically. For example, I went to Américas inside Boulevard on the 17th of July. There were about 100,000, perhaps 100,000 people were there supporting the revolution, communication, the president, all the people. And there was a happy rally. It shows solidarity, and I felt it was very important. And we went there with our cameras, we filmed people, interviewed the people. For the documentary we were thinking it was not made public, but it would have been very easy for many Cubans who have data on their phones to do those things live over Facebook. And date with the voice that I put it on Twitter too. So I think that Cubans must get used to the fast news, immediate news, and they must get used to that. And there are many young Cubans who know that they have more experience and they are more skilled, but they must be made part of that panel. Also, we're talking about reporting about human realities outside Cuba. We're talking about democracy and other concepts. But I think we should also have support from abroad. And we must communicate with the Cubans, young people who are submitted to a lot of manipulation from the outside on the realities we are just living in our own country and the own social problem we have. For example, I give you the example of police violence, drugs, abuse. I am living in the fifth most region of the world, but the pandemic are killing many people. 2 million people live in charity, for charity. Many children are living below the poverty line, and these are facts. They are not propaganda, they are facts. And the results from capitalism society. We must share that information with the Cubans so that they have more information, make comparisons, and to make people understand what the revolution has given to the people. I will stop there. Thank you, Helen. Let's have the chat again, please. Some messages. Some conference from the social movements are asking to see slides to her. Let's see how she can share them. Let's see how we can the networks from Nicaragua. There's a reading. Fausto says we are under this media pressure. We must unite people, so many people under the campaign. Thank you for this important workshop. Says Fausto from Nicaragua. Now we'll give the floor to Sanchez. I said to her that yes, anti-democratic policies are the result of these bourgeois democracies. Must be also informed about the Cubans so that they can know. Because Great Britain is the world economy and it has billions of people under the poverty line. The same happens in Spain. Spain is the seventh arms salesman in the world, and the second one as to the people under the poverty line. The European Union. So they say that it doesn't matter whether it's arms, weapons, industry that generate employment, and so on. That's false. Yes, we have to do that. As to what was asked by some people, the antidote to the media war. I would like to quote a friend, a lady who is in the communication, she's the director of the channel, channel in Spanish. In this hour, she told me why she lived in Cuba, because she has a broken heart. She's half Lebanese, half Cuban. She lived in Cuba for a long time, and she had the opportunity of asking what to do when confusion of that mass information get us confused. And he said, look always where the empire is. If you don't have the empire in front of you, no doubt it is behind you. It is a simple but useful answer. How can you work on communication and understand when I will know and get my way? Fine. In this unequal war, you are against the victim or the aggressor. You are against the aggressor, the empire, or collaborate with it. So you must doubt every information you get from the mass media, and that's very useful. It is a very ideal first aid kit. My eyes from Brazil told us a while ago over the network that we must trying to go over the language and barriers because of that absurd. Today, the communication media allow those barriers to be diluted. But even at meetings where we are afraid of meeting people from Brazil, Brazil is a continent within the Americas. There's much Spanish, but in Brazil, Portuguese, they speak Portuguese. Now we can understand each other better and communicate with each other better. We overcame language barriers because anti-Belgian unity must also go much further to the times we have to live together and share together. Thank you, Sherman. Pedro was asking for the floor. I do not know if any colleague or representative from the social movements or any other person connected with us would like to say something briefly. We have taken much of the time we have been allotted for this meeting, but I'll give the floor to Pedro, and if any other guest would like to say a few more things, brief things or a greeting, there will be some time for that. So Pedro, you have the floor. No, I cannot hear him now. Todavía. No, I cannot hear him. Not yet.
Tienes el micrófono apagado.
I think your mic is off. Perhaps you refresh your screen. No, I can't hear you. Let's see if somebody else is ready to take the floor. Marcelo Durado from the MCT.
Ahora sí.
Now, Pedro.
Ya rapidito. Gracias.
Yes, very brief. That's all right. No question.
Rapidito. No, yo decía, compañero, que el diagnóstico está hecho. No hay que seguir dándole mucha vuelta al diagnóstico. Está hecho. Hay que dar pasos concretos de cómo enfrentar esto. Yo digo, primero, centrarnos en nuestra audiencia, centrarnos en la defensa, después en la contraofensiva, después en el ataque comunicacional. Preguntaba ahí algún compañero si hay algún país al que podemos acudir para ver cómo ha hecho. Venezuela. Yo he tenido el privilegio de...
I have had the privilege of working there with the Venezuelan comrades in communication matters. Sometimes they depend on the Venezuelan audit, always responding to the environment, but addressing the Venezuelan people over the communication channels, establishing the trench, the column. They have Telesur and a series of communicators. They call them communicators are very active and very popular over digital communication and over the networks in general. They have other companies who specialize in free software, in working, and they have their own developers. They have companies who are highly specialized on how they can operate apart from the big corporations. So I think Venezuela is a good example to see how you can deal with difficult communications from abroad in the world, but inside they have it well structured and they were active in their resistance under the communication platform. But they focus on their own artists, not so much on responding to the world or thinking because we are not going to do what you want us to do. So they have their own agenda, their own leaders, their own Jews, their own influencers. Venezuela is a good example in that sense. Thank you, Pedro.
Una ronda más, no sé si...
One more round. Anybody else from those who are connected over the chat would like to send a message? Ask for the floor. Gonzalo? Okay. ¿Cómo no? Can you hear me? You have a question? A reflection? We were discussing the I will listen to the presentations, and it is something that you could hear in several panels, applications, and networks. And I think it is important to debate that and study that. What we mean by young people, that they are the most manipulated people. Sometimes it is the diagnosis of stereotyping when you put it that way. I mean, the whole population is talking, and how can we justify our actions like that in an argument. Instead of reaching out for that youth, you see them as an assimilated for the benefit of the reactionary discourse. We must study the ways in which the younger generation, the young generations of various ages communicate and how it's happening over the networks, and then work on that. And we should not think that they are manipulated already, because, for example, in Argentina, when they saw the vote statistical numbers, the voting numbers, people from 40 to 70 voted for the rightist candidates, and the young people from 18 to 25 voted for progressive candidates. This is just an example. You might use it to debate the idea that only young people are being manipulated. True. Young people use social networks more, but not only them. There's, for example, some networks that are using specific audience. Facebook is used by people between 35 to 50, and not necessarily that's not the case. Meaning that they are not young, doesn't mean that they will not reproduce a revolutionary discourse. If young people are manipulated, because they let themselves be manipulated, but it's also the fact that spaces do not interpret the ideas and the way of receiving information by that young people. They have to think of the materials, of the interventions, Pedro Santander Molina. Defend our proposal, what are the messages we present? We represent figures representing various ethnic groups or gender groups and so on, or programs that would collaborate with the international discourse. In that case, there are interesting ideas to discuss. We must have such a debate. As all friends said, we must think of ways to work on specific things. You must go from reflection and from denunciation to implementation of specific policies and how you create popular movements and how you create progressive governments, what have been the experiences in the last few years and how they continue to be reproduced in a plan of reform edition in which we may have a semiotic laboratory that have been proposed over the network by the people to carry out these kind of policies. Thank you. Anybody else? Entonces, Zúñiga, you would like to take the floor. Entonces, please. Welcome. This is my flag of Cuba down with the blockade. It's been a wonderful debate in this first dialogue, Cuba in the present times. I think that, as stated by all the presenters, we need a critical recovery on what's happening so that we can be more creative, and also we must discuss the narratives. For several years now, I have been working on Cuba. I want to explain that very much. But I have the package which has to do with or includes the content of the nomination, We must make this network something that liberates besides providing critical messages. Thank you for this process that you have shared with us to create build popular communication. And as Pedro said, we must act now. Means thinking of the codes that are developing fast with changes over the network, and how we can reach out to young people, and what are the images that are being created, and how can we create the ones we want and not the ones being imposed on us by the capitalist system. Thank you. Solidarity for the Cuban people. My solidarity for the Cuban people. Thank you. So, see anybody else? If not, we will give the floor to the panelists again. Hello, Fausto. Fausto is asking for the floor. Go ahead. Good afternoon. Greeting. We don't see you, so I'm with you. I see already how to get the image because I'm using the phone. It's okay. Oh, don't worry, go ahead. Greetings to all the panelists and those in the international table. We have also been able to this phenomenon on April 18th in Nicaragua. And we continue having this media macro. The information they are giving us today will be good for improving our work. That campaign we are creating Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, the peoples who are now facing this attack by the empire. We express our solidarity to people and let us continue with this effort. Thank you for inviting us to participate in this meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fausto from Nicaragua. If there are no more requests for the floor, we will have a short, brief round of interventions by our panelists.
Hola, gracias.
Rosa Miriam.
Nada, solamente agradecerle a Casa
I'd just like to thank Casa of Américas for this meeting.
Esta concertación,
For this
presentación que era también como una
Chapter, as I said, it was a sort of operation group. Unlike 59, I think it is operation group not only for the Cuban Revolution, but also for all the people who are now living under this dictatorship of a single thought that they try to impose on us through the transnational platform, private international platform that are more powerful than those states and which can perfectly articulate. They are non-conventional war methods to support order from. But I always say the lesson of Vietnam and the lesson of Afghanistan is that power, technological power, will up to the willingness of the people. I think we should express our thanks for this meeting and also for meeting many friends and colleagues we had for a long time. Thank you very much. A great hug. Pedro, can you listen? Can you frame it? It's fine. Very well. Two ideas. First, this battle it is a communication battle. It is more than media, and even more than that, it is also a battle. And we should see it as such. As to assassinate countries, with the example of Vietnam and others she mentioned, we must, right now, in the struggle, draw communication doctrine. One way of doing it is by observing the laboratory for Venezuela, Nicaragua are being put to, and we must focus on that. And we must take military categories and apply them and synthesize them as communication. Because this is a war. If this is a war, we must understand war as it is waged, even if it is in the communication field. Also, I'd like to express my great surprise and happiness and sometimes my overwhelming sensation I have had after the initial surprise because of the way Cuba has been facing politically and in other ways. This attack, I think very creative initiatives have been placed, and now that they will be good for use not only in Cuba, for the people who are struggling against capitalism. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pedro. José Ernesto.
Sí, yo al igual.
As all other comments, I would like to appreciate this opportunity, the lesson that is being drawn by the Cuban Revolution of this process is the importance of the battle, the political and communication battle with a clear projection towards the future. We shouldn't stop at mere reactions, at mere response to punctual needs, but rather to have a long scope of vision. And I believe that the key is that we have already generated some knowledge. There are valuable experiences in the continent about the resistance put up by peoples against different offensives. It is up to the Cuban revolutionaries and Latin American revolutionaries to incorporate this into this continuous resistance process against the imperialism. Thank you very much to everyone. I feel very happy. This is the feeling that I have drawn from this debate and what it will mean in future sessions. Thank you very much, José Ernesto. Helen, are you there? Go ahead. First of all, I would like to appreciate Casa de las Américas and all the organizations who have worked to put together this important event. I have learned a lot from other panel members. Thank you very much to all who are listening inside and outside Cuba. By listening to the final comments of the three final panel members, it's clear that we are speaking about a new battle of ideas that affects the education, communication, ideological fields. And in fact, there is a warfare, there is a battle, as Pedro said, against the imperialism that is determined as it has been as from 1959 to destroy the example, the threat of a good example posed by socialist Cuba. So I believe that in the book that was introduced, I have a chapter about the battle of ideas, and there are several examples there about very important works done at that moment at the neighborhood to find out what is the situation of certain sectors of the population in Cuba, the problems that were found there. And I have faced in the Cuban system and that process, which is very important to reincorporate those elements in the revolution and reinvent the revolution, which has had the capability of rejuvenating itself. What happened on July the 11th is driving a new process of the battle of ideas. Is about the relaunching the revolution, which is very important. And we outside Cuba are here to give our solidarity. It is not that Cuba is paradise, but Cuba is in fact very important for all the countries of the world. Why? Because if we don't have Cuba, what example do we have of an alternative to development, placing people's well-being First and foremost, before the Profiteering spirit, what example do we have better than a small island in the Caribbean dominated by 400 years of colonialism and imperialism, able to lead the region and create new syndicates, new disease that is affecting the whole world? If we don't have Cuba, what example do we have? Cuba's response to climate change, the task line, the program to cope with the climate change, need that example to show that there is an alternative that could serve the interests of humanity, not only Cubans, but people all over the world. I thank Cuba for its resilience, and on which I wrote in my book for Cubans to visit. The importance of Cuba for the world cannot be measured. And with this I conclude. Thank you, Helen. Txema Sánchez. I also thank the Casa de las Américas, the UNIAC, the TEC, the Solidarity Network of Martin Luther King Jr. Center for convening this meeting. I will end with some comments which are crucial. Formerly, I said that Vilma Guimaraes was calling for a unity to oust Bolsonaro, but we must start to construct this anti-imperialist hub because all fronts are our own front. I am accompanied by the national flag of Venezuela, a country that is also harassed and blockaded, because to me we all belong to the same front, the anti-imperialist front. The internationalism taught to us by the Cuban Revolution is the first step. Since the very beginning, when the revolution was very fragile, the Cuban Revolution started to defend other countries, not only in Latin America, where Che died, in Bolivia. We are also speaking about the way in which we have Syria, which has been for years harassed and subject to war. We shouldn't have any doubt as to which side can be taken in the case of Syria and others. While they may not fully agree with us, they are comrades in our internationalism and anti-imperialism. Thank you very much for this invitation. And I wish to see and to listen to the 3 debates you have already scheduled for the future. Thank you. Thank you very much, Txema. There are other greetings received at the National Solidarity Coordination of Peru, the Swedish Cuba Association, the Ireland Association of Friendship with Cuba, the Association of Cubans residing in Mexico, in Vietnam, Cubans residing in South America. There is a proposal to create a cultural front in Latin America and the Caribbean to reflect emotions and to reach out to the awareness of people. The Basque Country is proposing a week of solidarity with Cuba as from October. Well, with all these greetings and the appreciation to all those who are following us from different platforms in YouTube, in Facebook, all those who are sharing with us in the Gypsy channel, at the virtual Gypsy hall, to all the comrades present here, journalists. Most certainly you saw somebody from the television here, because we are trying to record this and broadcast this to Cuba, to the Cuban audience. Thank you very much to all of them. Txema spares me from mentioning again our appreciation to the organizers of this event, and not only house the Casa de las Américas, but also UPEC and NEC.
the Network for the Defense of Humanity, the Martin Luther King Center, and many other organizations of the civil society in Cuba. And we also were joined by the Association of Jurists of Cuba with the participation of Judy. They will be also coordinating next sessions with us. There is a huge mobilization of the civil society organizations in Cuba accompanying this initiative. We want to thank People's Forum, Code Pink, which are distributing this session through their own pages in English. We will meet again next Tuesday at 2 o'clock with a new topic to discuss. August 24th, we will be speaking about the challenges and urgencies of Cuba in the face of the blockade, the pandemic, and the serious economic situation. There would be an excellent group of panel members who would also be discussing from here, from Cuba, from Havana. We thank you for sharing with us. Share this signal through the social networks so that others at some point in time could access this panel. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you.
Ping pong.